answers.
We interrupt this scheduled broadcast of Taking Care of Business for a special program featuring Heather Boyer Samuels, Solkoff legal attorney who can be reached at 561-733-4242 or at 2605 West Atlantic Avenue, Delray Beach, Florida. Again, you can call Heather at 561-733-4242 and get your legal questions answered. Now, let's tune back to Taking Care of Business with our special host, Heather Boyer Samuels.
Hi, everybody. I am Heather Boyer Samuels. I am an attorney with Solkoff Legal, and we are your local elder law attorneys. A little bit about our firm. We are an AV-rated firm, and we help families, caregivers, and the elder population, as well as their families, with not only caregiving issues, but legal issues, Medicaid, VA benefits, guardianship, trust administration, and estate planning. But today, we're not here to talk about me and elder law. We're here to talk about caregiving, and I can't think of anybody better to talk about caregiving than my colleague and friend, David Levy. David Levy is a recognized expert in non-clinical caregiving nationwide, and his expertise is on planning and support of really messy and complicated family caregiving arising from aging, chronic illness, dysfunctional family dynamics, and disability. He's been doing this for over 25 years, and he is an expert on a lot of things, including something called presenteeism, where working family caregivers show up for work but are not productive as productive as they could be because they are dealing with these personal issues and how that impacts their productivity. He also helped create the first master's level program for geriatric care management right here at Lynn University. And beyond that, and how I get to see him work in the community is through some amazing support groups that have helped many of my clients, as well as working one-on-one with my clients and their families on caregiving issues. So today, what I want to go through with David is how he got into what he does and how it's taken off and how it's impacted his life. So welcome, David.
Thank you, Heather.
I know you're a much more experienced radio personality than I am. This is only my second time, but let's start to learn about you. So you work with lawyers. I'm a lawyer, but you went to law school. You transitioned from law to caregiving education. How did you do it? Why did you do it?
Well, when I graduated from law school, actually I was in the real estate business. Mm-hmm. And that year they were paying $19,500 for the best law student to go to the Wall Street law firms. Okay. And I had already made $40,000 in the real estate business. So I said, yeah, I can come back to this. And for the next 20 years, I specialized in assembling raw land. Now, you might say, so what? It taught me negotiation skills with people, especially when you're trying to assemble land and you're dealing with farmers and everybody knows it's a small, tight community. And if you don't do the right stuff and if you can't fit every piece together the right way, mm-hmm. you don't make deals. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I really learned negotiating skills.
And navigating personalities.
And not only that, but sizing them up mm-hmm. and understanding how that all works. In the meantime, I'd been through 3 real estate cycles between 1968 and 1988. Mm-hmm. And in 88, I said, I can't do this anymore. And so I was having my midlife crises. So I sat myself down one day and I said, what can I do that isn't cyclical? And I said, aging. Okay. And so that was the start. I created a company called Adult Care that was very quickly bought by an insurance company that was in the long-term care insurance business. And when a client went into claim, we supported the family in caregiving. And
That's
so
huge.
I was very lucky. I had an insurance company wallet and a built-in clientele because they had sold 100,000 policies, and eventually we wound up dealing with almost everybody that the insurer insured beyond just long-term care. And along the way, I said, I better learn more about this. But there was nobody teaching caregiving. So I went back to school, got my degrees in gerontology and conflict dynamics. And I also became a mediator. And at that time, and still now, the only thing that was around was either family mediation or elder law mediation, which was just getting started because of people like Scott Solkoff and others. But it didn't quite fit what I was doing. So I pushed the envelope with the people that were teaching, and I kind of created something called family mediation / caregiving. And they helped me establish it, and I was designated by the state of Florida, the Supreme Court, as the subject matter expert in this. And I really don't think there are many others because I kind of created it. Now, to quickly hurry up, the reason that I do non-clinical family caregiving is for a very simple reason. A, I never want to fight with doctors and psychologists and psychiatrists about the patient because they too know very, very little about the caregiver. So by calling it non-clinical and drawing a very bright blue line, and my mantra is, caregiving is not a disease. There's no pill. You know, yes, you may have stress and some undue circumstances that require a doctor for you as a patient, but not you as a caregiver. And over the years, I've developed a whole strategy, modalities, created a whole variety of intellectual properties surrounding it. And the key is support groups and dealing with caregivers every single day. If you don't have your feet on the ground in the trenches, then you're an academic. Right. And that's fine, but it doesn't get you where you need to be in this business.
Right. And working with all modes of caregivers, I see how important your role is, because most people, I'm sure you'll agree, when they go into it as a caregiver, it's their spouse, it's their parent, it's their sibling sometimes.
It's their special needs child.
Right.
Every
they don't know what to
parent
do.
who has a kid with autism.
Absolutely. And, you think as a person, you know how to care for somebody. You think it's innate, but it isn't. You have founded this amazing internet, radio, TV-based thing called Caregiver Reality, and it's something that caregivers turn to figure out what the heck they're doing. And you present every week on the radio. How has the radio kind of expanded your business? And do you have any plans to establish more of an online presence, online support groups, baby?
Well, that's a good question. What I found is that this streaming radio, which is what we're doing right now, radio and simultaneously on the internet, draws a worldwide audience if you have a subject matter that's unique. If you're just talking about one more vitamin, with all due respect, okay. But when you get into talking about caregiving, and I am a caregiver, and my co-host Paul is a spousal caregiver as well. So when we talk about it, we not only talk about it from our expertise of doing it, we talk about it also from the perspective of being one. Right. And I think that level of sincerity and passion comes through. So it's helped to establish a much wider footprint, and we get responses nationwide and from around the world, because caregiving really doesn't have anything unique to being a caregiver, whether you're in France or England or wherever you might be, or Minnesota. And most people never understood about caregiving. They always knew that you could take care of somebody with the flu,
Right.
A newspaper, an aspirin, a week later you feel better. Caregiving is a long-term, difficult subject that is complex, complicated, confusing, but most of all, it's counterintuitive. What you think from the skill sets that you have you ought to do is absolutely not what you need to do as a caregiver advocating for somebody else. The aspect of it that's what I'll call bedpan patrol and giving somebody a pill and all of that. Yes, we know how to do that. But 85% of caregiving is practical problem solving and not clinical.
When you talk about advocacy, what do you mean in terms of the average family caregiver? Let's say it's a child caring for a father with dementia. What is her role as an advocate for a father?
Well, first of all, you have to recognize that advocacy and caregiving move somewhat hand in hand.
Absolutely.
As a caregiver, you are responsible, let's call it at home, all right? And you're there trying to do the right thing in the home setting environment. But go to the doctor, deal with the system, the law, etc., is when you have to become an advocate for your loved one. You have to take up their cause and speak on their behalf, make sure that what's being done and promised gets done and accomplished. And you can't just leave it to chance. And a lot of where I see advocacy changing from caregiving to advocacy is when you place a loved one in a facility. Then they're totally in a foreign environment. And you need to make absolutely sure, even if you're in the Class A facility, there are still records that have to be watched. Medications get changed. You have to make sure that you are in absolute control of the knowledge and the services that are being provided day in and day out. Because if you let it slip, remember, these facilities are only as good as the people they have working for them and the people they have managing them. Absolutely. They are also, for the most part, for profit. And so there's a bottom line, taking nothing away from them. But in this day and age, you have to be very, very careful when you place a loved one in the care of another, that
Absolutely.
You have done your homework, even when it's hiring somebody to work at home.
Yeah, I've seen some tragedies, unfortunately, there. Personally, my grandmother died at the hands of a poor caregiver. She was dropped.
That's a paid caregiver.
Paid caregiver.
Right.
She was dropped on her neck, and she died from those injuries. And so I have personal experience with that. And so I understand the great responsibility of a family caregiver, even if their responsibility is just supervising and checking in.
Right, and that's especially important for a long-distance caregiver.
Absolutely, and that's really where I'm going with that. In terms of a long-distance caregiver, when you get involved, how do you set them up? How do you teach them, so to speak, what their role is and how to connect with the professionals that are going to help them sleep at night?
Well, first of all, you have to make very sure that you don't assume. You know, I can call mom up and say, how you doing? Fine. Everything going all right? Great. Want to talk to your father? Sure. Hi, Dad. Everything okay? Yup, you bet. All right, well, we'll see you at Thanksgiving. Bye. And everybody assumes that everything, I mean, I'm being simplistic. But when you're not there for eyes and ears, it's very easy to be deceived. Many is the family that has come for Thanksgiving and discovered that mom and dad's now advanced in dementia, but mom runs great interference for him. Mom's burned out. So the first thing you need to do is make sure you have local eyes and ears, whether that means hiring a case manager to go in and do an evaluation if you think or are concerned about what's happening. The next time you're down, speak to a neighbor, ask them if they've seen anything unusual going on. Would they keep an eye, and what else might be happening? Are there relatives or other family members that are in the area or friends that can give you a different perspective? But then in dealing with any caregiver, and you said, how do you set them up?
Right.
Is the first thing you have to recognize is that you're a caregiver, okay? And that you're not just a sibling any longer, all right? Yes, you're a daughter, but you're a caregiver.
Right.
And with that comes the need to plan. Just as you, as an effective elder law attorney, try and set your clients up with the right documentation and powers of attorney and advance directives in case there are healthcare emergencies, and Medicaid if it's needed, and as you said in your opening, VA and things like that. They have to have a plan as well for what happens when that phone rings and there's a problem. They need to know where things are. One of the biggest problems, and I always remind people of this, I've seen where mom's gotten sick and dad has dementia, so the daughter flies in, all right, and she has no idea how to pick up the pieces. It's one thing to have your emergency contacts on the refrigerator. One thing I tell them is to make sure that you know the daily routine of the person that you may be responsible for. You don't know when they're eating.
Right.
Do they sleep in pajamas? Do they, where are the Depends? What do they like? What's their cycle? You can't guess that in advance. So mom needs to be part of it, or a case manager, or you're hiring somebody. But the most important thing is to diary what is going on so that if you have to step in on an emergency basis, you understand. Long term, there's a great program called Death Over Dinner. You may have heard about it, where over Thanksgiving or when the family's all together, you sit and you have those conversations about, these are my powers of attorney, this is what I want, this is my advance directives, I don't expect you to monkey around with them. If I get into end of life, this is what I want, please don't guess, this is why I'm putting it in writing. And it's just as important to understand, where are things? Where's the deed? Where's the will? Right. Is it in a safety deposit box? Does anybody know where, how? I have clients that have loved ones that have gotten, either they were very cloistered to begin with, and all right, and nobody knows where anything is, all right? And should something happen, you're really behind the eight ball, because not only are you dealing with a crisis, but you don't know where the, quote, stuff is.
Yeah, I've gotten many a frantic phone call like that, and in the firm we keep copies of everything, but it's jarring to a child that comes from New York or Massachusetts or California and is trying to pick up the pieces after an emergency, to not have those things, especially because that's the first thing the hospital asks.
Even if it's the bills.
Right.
Okay. And in this day and age, when a lot of bills are paid online, all right, do you have passwords?
Right.
Can you access it? Or do you wait until you get paper overdue notices or things start getting turned off, like the power, because mom or dad always did it online. Mom never knew how to use the computer or didn't know. And all of a sudden, dad has a little bit of a temporary ischemic attack, a little mini stroke or something like that, becomes forgetful.
Right. And then
where are those passwords?
And then you got to go to the bank. You have to figure these things out.
If you know where the bank is.
Yeah,
all right?
Absolutely.
All right. So you can see that organizing and being prepared.
Right.
Because, as I said, it's complex and it's counterintuitive. So you never know what you're going to find. And one thing I always advise caregivers is that there's no such thing as perfection in caregiving. Many times just getting through the day is great, all right? But none of us are Mother Teresa and Florence Nightingale, and we set the hurdles way too high, and then caregivers get guilty. I could have done more. I should have done more. Why didn't I know better? It's because it's not a subject that you intuitively know or have been taught.
Right. And so, it's one thing when it's one kid stepping in. What happens when there are three kids? Nobody gets along. I face this issue in my practice all the time. Mom and dad come in and they say, well, we really need to name Susie because Susie's actually the one that takes care of us, but we don't want Johnny and David to be insulted. So we're going to go ahead and name all of them and let them figure it out. And
that's a disaster just waiting to happen.
And I tell them that's a disaster waiting to happen. And sometimes they're just undeterred. What happens in these crisis situations when you step in to mediate these families?
Well, one of the things that they have to understand is with siblings, you can have issues that go back to the sandbox.
Absolutely.
All right? And mom liked you better than me, and I'm smarter, I know more. And
what I hear is, I'm the oldest, so I should obviously be in control. I've heard that one 1,000
Right.
times.
Well, and there's all kinds of literally idioms of control. The first thing you have to understand with the children, assuming that they're all of the same mother and father, in multi-generational situations, you haul Samsonite luggage out of the closet that's been there for years, or that's not my mom, or that's not my father. I don't really give a damn, or, whatever it may be. But you have to sit them down and first explain, we're not here for you. This is about your parents. This is not about resolving conflicts that you guys have between you. This is about finding solutions to the issues that mom and dad have. And I've seen it in end of life. All of a sudden, it'll be end of life, hospice may be called in or whatever it is, and you'll get the daughter from Chicago who said, "You're killing daddy, don't you dare take him off." And all you have to do is scare a hospital a little bit. They think there's going to be liability.
Absolutely.
And
that happens all the time.
they'll keep them on. And many is the time I have said to the daughter, I said, this isn't about you. This is about your father. It's about quality of life. If you haven't atoned, you got 48 hours to get down here, or we're going to either have to go to court or we're going to honor the durable powers of attorney and the advance directives. So this isn't about you. This is about dad, and he's explained, or if he hasn't, it's right here in writing. If it's not, we have other issues, all right? And normally, a hospital won't pull you off this, and getting hospice, if you don't have a power of attorney, it's one thing when they step in, but they can't leave themselves open for issues that aren't, they know what they have to do, but the family has to have some semblance of agreement. So that's one of the reasons why an early conversation, and many children are estranged from their parents, but they're not estranged from the inheritance.
That's quite another topic.
Yes.
And, I see that sometimes coming into it, but I would say that most families, at least
they
one
mean
child,
well.
really does mean well. That's
Right.
exactly it.
But when you're going up against the system, now, case in point, without getting personal, and I just explained it to you. My wife, who has a very unusual illness, in the middle of my afternoon at Delray Hospital with somebody in hospice, I had to turn around and come home and take her to the ER. And the ER was full, all right? And if you don't know your way around the system, and you can't, you're just one more number out there, all right? You come in, you're prepared. I had my documents. I had all the information for them. I explained that everybody has an emergency, but this one required. And I was just very lucky today that one of my good friends, who's a doctor who I helped take care of his mother who has dementia, all right, walked in, and I said, need your help, all right? And so we got in quickly, but her disease was one that nobody knew what to do, but I was prepared with all of the information, because this isn't the first time I've done this, not just for her. But if you do not have the information, then everybody's starting from ground zero. And all of a sudden you have somebody who's panicked saying, well, they did this and this happened and I'm not sure. And they ask, what medications are they on? And you take out some grimy little piece of paper from dad's wallet that nobody can read. All right? We print them out, both my wife and myself, besides what we might carry in our wallet, and update them every month with any change in meds, any change in conditions. You walk and you hand it to them and say, here.
So how does a family caregiver get that information together? Where do they start?
We talk about it all the time. My book, Practical Problem Solving for the Family Caregiver, is available on Kindle. It's available almost anywhere. If they Google Levy Caregiving, they can have $6.95. And it's not about how did I take care of my wife or my mother. It's the practical issues of problem solving. And as I warned you tonight on your first show, and you've done a wonderful job, that half hour goes quickly.
It does go quickly.
And I want to thank you, because it's been a pleasure, all right? And I hope you do many more and you'll have me back.
I hope so too, and I hope you'll have me on your show
Right.
eventually too. It's so important, and what I really want to leave people with is that caregiving and aging and grappling with these family issues is really a multidisciplinary thing.
Takes a team.
Absolutely.
Lawyers, doctors, gerontologists, caregiver experts. Everybody has a part to play,
Yes.
and nobody knows everybody else's expertise. Non-clinical family caregiving is my expertise. Elder law is yours. I may have gone to law school, but I'm certainly wouldn't hold myself out to be an elder. I understand it, but I don't practice it anymore. I know a lot of medicine, but I don't practice medicine either.
Right.
Right.
And so I always encourage people, if you reach out, if you need help, if you've gotten a diagnosis, get a lawyer, get a caregiver, go to a support group. You'll learn a lot.
Right. And just play with the referral. Understand what has to be done. And caregiverreality.com is a good place to start. Solkofflegal.com is a great place.
Solkoff.com.
Yeah, is a great place to start because there's all kinds of useful information in an easy-to-use form.
Start
Ask
somewhere.
questions. And the one you asked earlier, and I'll just finish up with this, we are planning on expanding our online caregiving in terms of support groups so that, as it is now, some of my local support groups, I film with the help of your producer, and we have them online so people at least, not so much for the particular subject matter, but that they learn the importance of a support group. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, David. I've enjoyed learning about you. Some more.
All right.
The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Hello, my name is Taylor Ash, and I am the owner of Calypso Salt and Soap. Each batch is handcrafted by me, and when I started, I really didn't want to make just ordinary looking soap. I'm pretty artistic by nature, so I wanted my soaps to reflect me and be artistic looking as well. In my